Hello, and thank you for joining me again today on the Finding Hope After Loss podcast. Today's episode is about a kind of grief that often goes unseen and untalked about. Miscarriage and pregnancy loss are incredibly common, and yet so many people still go through it completely alone because they think they're supposed to just endure it, not talk about it, and just move on. My guest today is Kym, a certified grief educator, grief coach, author, and founder of Adrian Grief Support. Kym has experienced many losses in many forms, including the deaths of her son and husband. But what she rarely talked about for years were the 6 miscarriages she experienced before that. We talk about the silence around miscarriage, the feeling that this type of grief isn't allowed, and why pregnancy loss is often considered disenfranchised grief. Kym also shares why grief doesn't need to be fixed, why each loss deserves to be witnessed, and what it looks like to trust yourself again in a life that has been permanently changed. Hello, everyone. Today I am here with Kym. Kym, do you mind telling us a little about yourself?
I would love to. Hi, Sarah. Thank you for having me on today. I'm Kym Hinchey, and I am a grief coach and educator and an author, and I do that full time. My business is called Adrian Grief Support, which is named after my son who passed away. And when I discovered that grief was not something I was prepared for, not something that anyone told me it was going to be like, and not something that went away as quickly as I expected. I just really wanted to find a way to kind of reach out to other people who are now where I was and just tell them that they're normal, that what they're feeling is normal. That's really it. That's the simplest thing in a nutshell is you're normal.
Before you really went through grief, did you have an idea of what you thought grief is supposed to look like or what it's supposed to be?
Yeah, absolutely. Because we all hear about the 5 stages, right? The nonsense of the 5 stages. Yeah, so I thought that grief would be, linear. I thought it was like check the boxes off as you go through it. And it turned out that that was not true. It's more like grief is more like a yarn, a bundle of yarn that's all tangled up, and you might end up in the back in the place that you were 3 months ago, and then you're like, oh no, am I going backwards? And then you might suddenly have a smooth stretch where there's no snarls, and you're like, okay, I can do this, and then boom, you're in a knot. So, it's nothing like what we're told. It's nothing like what we expect. And it catches almost all of us by surprise, I think. And it's a terrible surprise to have on top of grief. Terrible.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, especially when other people have this idea of how grief is supposed to look like. And so then, you get those comments like, why are you still sad? Like it's been a year or it's been this, or like, why are you crying all the time? Why are you not crying all the time? Just all of
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
crazy things people say.
Yeah. You can't get it right. You can't get it right. And those magic numbers, the year, the somehow the magical year that everything gets better again. And that's one of the things that I really try to make people understand is that the timeline is much, much longer than we expect it to be. And it doesn't really go away, which I'm sure you know too. It doesn't go away. It changes. It absolutely changes, but it doesn't go away.
I
Yeah.
think what people don't understand is as you said, that it is lifelong and that we just have to learn how to live our life around it, knowing that it's going to always exist and it's going to always be
Yeah.
there, but that we don't have to let it like overtake our lives every day.
Exactly. Exactly. But it takes a long time to get to that point where it's not taking over our lives every day. And that is my essential message to the people who are in it, who are thinking about it all the time, 24/7, all the time. This is what's on your mind constantly, your grief. You keep going back to it. That is normal. That is normal because it takes a long time to get to that place.
Yeah, long time and a lot of work. I mean, I think
Yeah.
we think it's going to just come to us. Like one day we'll just wake up and not be sad anymore,
Yeah,
but
not be sad anymore. Would that be
I
nice?
wish, right?
I
I
do too.
know.
I do too. Yeah, I wish I didn't have a job. And that's the truth.
Yeah,
Because,
I
yeah, I
know.
wish it just magically disappeared like we expect it to, but it doesn't.
So I know that you also have had experience with pregnancy loss. Do you mind talking a little about that?
No, I would be happy to. So I'm in my 50s now, but when I was in my 20s, after my sons were born, I experienced 6 miscarriages. And 6. That's still like a big number for me to think about because every one of them represented hope that then disappeared. And it was really difficult. I'm laughing, although it's not funny, but sometimes you have to laugh at things so
Yeah.
they don't break you, right? And back then, I don't know what the medical terminology would be now, but I was told that I had an incompetent cervix, which, what an invalidating term,
And
right?
that is still used. And I'm
Oh
like,
my
way to like
gosh.
blame the women for it.
Oh, yeah, that's how I felt. I felt it might have been medical terminology, but it landed like a verdict, right, in my heart. I was less than, I was incomplete, I was somehow not a proper woman. There was something wrong with me. I was incompetent, right? An essential part of me was incompetent. So that was really devastating and it was hard. And what I remember, well, two things. First, I remember my husband coming to me after the sixth, and I was almost 5 months, and we had begun, feeling hope, thinking this was maybe our girl. Everything seemed to be going well, and then it wasn't. And my husband came to me and he said, "Please, can we stop? Please, please, let's stop." And he said, you can have as many animals as you want. I will go get you a puppy right now. Please, let's just stop. And, that might sound awful to the grieving mother heart, but, he was a man who was really devastated himself. And watching me go through this over and over, he was like, I can't do this anymore. And then the second part is the silence. Like that was it, including between him and I until much later when we spoke about it years and years later. But there wasn't any discussion. It was, let's see, 1999, and no one talked about things like this. No one talked about it. There was no language around miscarriage. It was just, I didn't talk to my mom. I didn't talk to my friends. I didn't talk about it at all because I didn't feel like I was allowed to. I really thought that what I needed to do was just endure it and just move along. And so that's what I did. I think that's what most women did. I think that's what too many women do now. And I still feel emotions come up when I think about that, when I think about, and I was silent, because of society, because it was grief literacy. No one knew anything. But inside, I really had this desire to talk about it. And I've always been a journaler my entire life. And before we had this session today, before we talked, I went and looked at my journal entries from back then, and they're short, but they're poignant. And I feel so much tenderness looking back at myself back then, the woman that I was, so alone, so isolated, so in pain, and writing down, I wish that I had named you. And then filling that in with the different names. I wish that I had seen what color hair you would have, and it still makes my heart ache thinking about that. That still is really heavy today.
It just makes me so sad that you and so many others just have to suffer in silence. I mean, something so traumatic and heartbreaking. I mean, losing a child, losing multiple children, and then
Yeah.
you're just left alone. Like, well,
Yeah.
sorry that happened, but you got to just
Yeah.
move on and go
Yeah.
back to life.
And you don't even get a sorry that happened. You get silence because this is the disenfranchised grief that surrounds stillbirth, miscarriage, infertility. We just don't talk about it. And disenfranchised grief means the loss is real, but society does not acknowledge it. And so then that leaves parents going, okay, is my sadness real? Is my grief real? Are my feelings real? Am I a parent? Am I not? Just that horrible uncertainty. And then layer the isolation on top of it. And you have an absolute recipe for loneliness and sadness. And I hate it. I hate it. I really do.
Why do you think that this is a type of loss that people don't want to acknowledge or talk about?
I think that there's a lot of losses that are not acknowledged and not talked about. I think that we have kind of a toxically positive culture. So just, look on the sunny side, find the silver lining. And so I think the automatic go-to response, even today, if you hear that somebody's had a miscarriage, it's, well, you can try again. And that's so invalidating. It's awful, but that's oh, well, how can I help you? Well, try again. We have all these little cliches that just kind of roll off the tongue. And it's that way with not just this type of grief, but every kind of disenfranchised grief, the kind that makes people uncomfortable and they don't know what to say and your feelings seem really big. And so how do I respond? Well, I'll bright side you. That's what I call it. It's bright siding. Yeah. Look on the sunny side.
That's a
Well,
good
maybe
word
you'll
for it.
maybe you'll
Yeah.
have your rainbow baby. Yeah, but what about this baby?
Yeah, like that doesn't replace our baby that we lost.
Yes.
I mean, yes,
Yeah.
it helps us heal in some ways, but I wanted that baby
I
and this
wanted that baby.
baby, you know?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so I think it's really difficult because the attachment is real, the hope is real, the love is real, the future we begin to imagine is real. It's unfolding in our hearts, in our heads, and then it's gone. And that leaves you with grief that's real too, but nobody sees
Yeah.
it except other people who have experienced it.
Yeah. I mean, I know you said that you didn't really talk about it much, but did you know of anybody else at the time who had gone through it or anything similar?
No, at the time, it was kind of a hush hush. Like I would find out someone, oh, you had a miscarriage too. And it'd be like, oh, wow. But we were dancing around this taboo subject. Even though we were at the center of that subject, it was just not okay. It was not okay. And I think that that's gradually changing. I hope that that's gradually changing. You could speak more to that than I could. Do you think it is?
I think so in some ways. I mean, I think it's still a thing that, people can talk about it to certain audiences in certain communities, certain places. You can take to social media now and talk about it,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
sometimes the people that you expect to be the most supportive, like family and friends, are the people that you can't talk to about it. And that's
Right.
sad, but
Yeah. It's true. It's true. I call that finding your grief tribe. You have to find your tribe, the people that understand, the people that speak the language, and the people that are going to witness your grief without trying to fix you or make
yeah.
you better. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like, we can't be fixed. Just please let me be sad. Please let me miss
Yeah.
my baby or my mom, my dad, whoever you
Yeah.
lost. You can't make it better. So just
No.
sit with me.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really hard for us to do culturally. We want to fix things. We want to find a solution. That's the toxic positivity, like I said. And I'm not against positivity. I'm an extremely positive person. I love positivity, but I don't like toxic positivity where you say your feelings are wrong, your feelings aren't valid, and here's how you should feel instead. That's toxic positivity, and I can't abide it. I can't.
Do you
Yeah.
think people even realize that they're doing
Mm,
that? Or, I mean, do you think
no.
it's like they've just been kind of programmed to say these things?
Yeah. Yeah. I do think that. I think that, and that's why I'm a grief educator. I mean, it's in the title, right? That is my job to educate people about grief and not just to help grievers, although that is my passion and my purpose, but to educate other people about grief. That, like I said in the beginning, this is normal. There's no timeline. And you can just sit with someone. You can just sit with them. You don't fix it. Don't fix it. You can ask them, how are you feeling? What are you thinking? What are you wishing? Because sometimes we do need to say those things. Grief needs to be witnessed. That is absolute. Grief needs to be witnessed. It doesn't need to be fixed. It doesn't need to be changed. It doesn't need to be speeded up, but it does need to be witnessed. But that requires us being able to sit in the discomfort of someone else's feelings without trying to make it better. And that's a hard thing to do. So a grief educator tries to tell people how to do that. That's and it's not rocket science. It's really simple. It's just sit with me. Just sit with me. Just let me be sad.
So, as a grief educator, do you mostly work with people who are going through grief themselves or people who are looking to support other grievers or kind of both?
I work with both. Most people who are grief educators works primarily with people who are in grief, and I do. I do one-on-ones, I do groups, but I also am very involved in the grief educator community and supporting other people as they start this as a career because I think it's desperately needed. I think it's really needed, and I'm not going to be I don't want to sound like I don't think therapy is a good thing because I do. I think therapy is essential and it's very important, but therapy is usually not grief informed. And so it's aimed towards a solution and fixing a medical problem or mental illness and medicating and moving towards some kind of solution. And again, grief is incompatible with that. It must evolve the way that it evolves. And so when I was in early grief and I went to therapists, I just did not find what I was looking for. So a grief educator or a grief coach is somebody who is going to be like, I get it. I get it. And it's okay. You can just be the way you are right now. And that's okay. So that's really important to me to support other grief educators trying to get this little movement started.
No, I love that you're doing that because you're right. I mean, I've been to multiple different therapists throughout my life, and my mom is actually a therapist. So, I've kind of grown up with hearing about therapy and mental health,
Yep.
my whole
Yeah.
life. And I did see a specific grief counselor after
Hmm.
my loss, and that made all the difference. Like someone who actually knew about grief and
Yeah.
wasn't just, as you said, trying to make me better and fix it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Whoever it is, make sure they're grief informed. Make sure that they have grief somewhere in their description because otherwise they're probably going to be following the old style of thinking. In the same school as the incompetent cervix. They're going to be following the five
I don't
stages
mean
of
to
grief.
laugh. I'm just,
No, that's okay. We have to laugh. We have to laugh. Laughter is to me, it's one of the essential things that's so necessary when you are experiencing grief. And it can really weird people out because you can go from crying to laughing and then back again in 30
They're like, what's
seconds.
wrong with you?
Yeah, but it belongs. It all belongs. Yeah,
Yeah, I find sometimes we need the dark humor in there too, and people who
100%.
haven't been through it, they don't get it. But usually the ones in the
Yeah,
same type of lost community as you, they're like, oh yeah, that's funny. I
yes.
get it.
Isn't that so true? It's like dark humor becomes a companion when you are in the grief journey. But it's a survival tool. I love it. I laugh at almost everything. And yeah, sometimes it might seem inappropriate, but it's really not. It's really
Yeah.
not. It all belongs.
I think, yeah, I think that goes back to, again, like grief having to look a certain way, and that's not how grief is supposed to look. We're not supposed to make jokes and laugh, but
Yeah.
as you said, it's really important to healing. I
Yeah.
remember after losing Jasmine, I mean, I just wanted to like laugh. That's what I wanted. I was like, I have been crying for so many
Hmm.
days. I just want to do something normal to make me laugh. And then I
Yeah.
felt guilty for it.
Yes. Oh, yeah,
No.
absolutely. Yeah. Am I moving on too soon? Am I forgetting? Am I doing this wrong? But then there's the opposite end of that is that if am I overwhelming people with my grief? Am I talking about it too much? I mean, there's no happy medium where we're ever going to say this is okay. So that's what I say to your listeners. This is okay, wherever you are. Whether you're laughing or crying or going back and forth or feeling numb, because that's a thing too. It's okay. It's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I felt all of those things at some point
Yeah.
in my last 8 years without her.
Yeah.
And yeah, it goes back and forth. Some days are really hard still, and then most
Yeah.
days are fine. And then someday it's just like, oh my gosh, I don't know what hit me today, but it is
Mm.
bad.
Yeah, one of those grief bursts. They just
Yeah.
appear out of nowhere and it's like, boom. Oh, wow, I'm back here again.
Like, oh,
The
thanks for
difference,
showing up.
yeah, yeah. Thanks. I've forgotten what you looked like. Oh, yeah, here you are again. Yeah, but when that happens to me, because I do have grief bursts. I've had a lot of losses in my life, and they'll show up with different titles. My grief bursts, oh, today it's your lost youth and the babies you could not have, and today it's your husband, and now it's your son who died, and it's just always, they show up, but I know I won't stay there anymore. That's the difference. I know I won't stay there anymore because I know about grief now, and I know about love, and I know that they're the same thing. They are. So I know that it's going to turn from the pain into the love again. It always does. It always does.
So, as someone who's had a lot of grief in your life, do you find that, I mean, I think a lot of people think that each grief is like a separate event, but do you find that
Mhm.
they kind of compound on each other? Or, I mean, how
Mm.
has that kind of been for you?
Multiple losses are, yeah, it's layers. You get layers of loss. And some people go through a season, I'm sure some of your listeners will resonate with this, where you feel like it's loss after loss after loss. It's like a season of loss. So that's a really legitimate question. What I know now is that you must grieve them separately. You can't lump them all together, blend them up, and just drink your grief shake, right? You have to grieve them separately. I have to look at this grief when it comes up and acknowledge it and feel it for itself, for its individuality, for its space in my life and in my heart, in my past. So each one does need to be grieved separately. You can't just bunch them all up. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, a lot of people that are in the loss community or infertility community, they'll have multiple losses in a row, multiple miscarriages, multiple failed transfers, multiple,
yeah,
and I know that sometimes when you're going through that, you can get kind of stuck in the what's the word I'm looking for? Like it just happens over and over, so you never fully process what's
yeah,
happening. So
yeah,
I think
yeah,
that makes a lot of sense, hearing especially that people have never processed it, or maybe they processed the last one, but not the former ones.
right, right, yeah. And each one deserves that space. I really believe that. Each one deserves that space. And we must do it. We must do it. But it can look different. My grief for my son now is a lot of laughter because I remember him, with more love than pain almost every day. And so I'll think about something that he did or said, or I'll hear him saying it to me now, and I'll just start laughing. And so there's a lot of laughter. And like I was telling you before we started, my dog just died. And some people would say, "Oh, it's just a dog," but no, that's a real loss. And I haven't reached that point where I can remember him with more love than pain. And so when I look at him, I when I look at my memories of him and I think of him, it makes me cry because that's where I am. That's the season that my grief is in right now. And I know it'll change. I know it will because grief always changes. Everything changes. We change constantly, but it's okay. It's okay. And I just let myself go, it's okay. This is how I'm feeling right now, and it's okay.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, because again, we just have this idea of how we're supposed to be, and we're supposed to move on, and we're not supposed to
Yeah.
linger in the grief. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
long learning process,
Yeah.
that can take a long time.
Yeah. And I think the lingering and the grief is grieving. That's part of it. Because sometimes we do these, we'll go back to the same thought over and over and over again, right? I mean, that's familiar to anybody who's experienced grief. I keep going back and thinking about this. That is the process of grieving. That's how we do it. We think about it again and again. We experience all of the different emotions. That is grieving. You're not stuck. You're not doing something wrong. You're not caught in rumination. You're doing what the human being does when it is experiencing grief. It's a natural, organic process. And if we try to stop it, that's like trying to stop healing. If we just allow it to happen the way that it happens, that is a natural thing that's going to progress. But because we don't know what grieving looks like, because we don't know that this is a natural, normal thing, we go, "Oh my gosh, I'm stuck. Oh my gosh, I'm going backwards. Oh my gosh, why am I thinking about this again?" Well, because that's how you grieve. That's what grief is. It's all of those things. Yeah.
Do you find that as you talk to more people about grief and how it works, how they process it, things like that, that they get a better understanding of it and stop
Mm,
feeling, not stop feeling bad about it, but like that they just
I
gain
hope so.
a better understanding?
I hope so. Oh, with all my heart, I hope so. That is my heart's desire, that somebody will read something or hear something that I've said and they'll go, "Oh, okay. So I'm not crazy. Okay, so I'm not stuck. Okay, so I'm not sliding backwards. Okay, so this is exactly the way that I'm supposed to feel right now." And yeah, and my answer to that is yes. Yes. This is exactly how you're supposed to feel. Of course.
Yeah, I remember before we left the hospital when I had my loss, it was one of the nurses who said to me that whatever you're feeling right now is the right way to be feeling. And that
Oh.
comment has always stuck with me. That is like the one comment that has like stayed with me forever. So I always try to like anybody I know who's grieving, that's what I always try to repeat and
Yeah.
tell them. But I was just so grateful that there are people like that who gave
Yeah.
me permission to feel how I was feeling.
Bless that nurse.
Yeah.
What a wonderful person. Oh, wow. Yeah.
I feel
Yes.
like sometimes we need that permission because we feel like we don't
Absolutely.
have it.
Yeah, we do. We do need that permission. Uh, I wish that we didn't, but until our culture becomes more grief literate, this is something that I say with caution and love to the people who are grieving. You must become the teachers because you're the only ones that speak this language. So if we want our society, our culture, our world to become grief literate, we have to teach them the language. And that might not be for you right now. If you're in that place where you are just devastated and in great turmoil and extreme emotional pain, that's okay. But if you are in the place where you're beginning to see a little bit of light, yeah, then speak about it, talk about it, teach other people. We have to become the teachers. We're the only ones who can. We're the only ones who can change anything, anything about the way people view grief, miscarriage, stillbirth, infertility. It's you are the person who has experienced it. You are the expert. And so you can speak your truth to the people who you trust, and maybe they'll hear it and maybe they'll view it a little bit differently the next time they see it.
I think that's a really good point. I mean, yeah, who better than to teach about it than the ones who have lived through it? I mean, how
Yeah.
else are people going to fully understand if we're not the ones telling them?
Yeah. Yeah. They're not. They won't. Yeah. So I think it's really important. But again, like I said, I say that with so much gentleness and love because I know that that's a hard ask when you are in acute grief, when you are really feeling it. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're not telling people on day one to just go out and start
Nope.
teaching.
Or day 100. Honestly, let's be real. It's no, this is, I always think of grief as like when I was in deep grief, I was like doggy paddling. Like I was in an ocean of sadness and anger and all of these emotions. And I was just barely keeping my head above the water. I was like, just dog paddling. But I could see on the shore, there were some people that had made it somehow. I didn't know how they did it. I had wasn't sure I could, but it like kept me going. It gave me a little bit of hope. Like, okay, there are people that have made it out of this crazy, awful emotional storm, and they're standing there and I can see them. And so it's them that I'm talking to, the people who are on the shore. Yeah.
I love that
Because
analogy.
your words might help somebody who's dog paddling. It might keep them afloat.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
why that's something I've always tried to do in sharing my story repeatedly. And, I've been, like I said, 8 years out from my loss, and talking to someone who's newly gone through it in the last year is quite different than talking to somebody who went through it
Right.
several years ago. So I
Yeah.
do, I like that, knowing
Yeah.
that what I say can
Yeah.
help them.
Yeah. Your words could be that little life vest or the little, that gets thrown out there and
Mm.
keeps them afloat for just a little bit longer because it's so exhausting. That's the other thing. It's so exhausting. Grief is, it's not just emotional, it's physical. And especially if we're talking about, miscarriage. So you're trying to recover, your hormones are going all over the place. I remember that. I remember it so well. And just being, yeah, like I said, in silence, in and not being able to talk about it with anybody. Now that would be a different story. Now my friends are grief informed. My mom is, it would be an entirely different discussion now, but it wasn't then. It wasn't.
Yeah, I think people often forget too, like you mentioned, the physical part that comes along with miscarriage and stillbirth. And I mean, we literally give birth and then go through
Yeah.
postpartum. And I mean, but you don't have a baby. So you have the
Yeah.
healing and the grief on top of it.
Yep. I remember feeling insane when I was in the bathroom at work and I was like changing my pad for I don't even know, it felt like the millionth time. And I was just thinking, I was so alone. I couldn't tell anybody what was happening to me. And I had I had horrible cramps and I was in pain and grief and grief and pain. It was just a really, really hard time. Yeah. Really
Like what a
hard.
great combination that you
Yeah.
have given all of this.
Yes. And
You
then I
know,
got to put the fake smile on and go back out and act like everything was great because yay, winner.
and you're like slowly dying inside.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
like,
Yes.
I'm fine, everything's good. It always reminds
Yeah.
me of, that meme with the dog sitting in the fire and it's like, it's fine,
Yes.
everything's fine.
Everything's fine. That's so true. Yeah, that's it. That's what you are in grief. You're just because we learn really quick I call it the pretend okay shield. And we put it on, right? And it's the pretend okay shield because we don't want to be grieving too much. We don't want to be grieving too little. We don't want to overwhelm people with our grief. We don't want to make people uncomfortable. We don't, we have all of these things. So we put on the pretend okay shield with our little smile and we say, yeah, I'm fine. Everything's fine. And inside our brain is going, nothing's fine. I am not even slightly okay at all. But look at my fake smile. Everything's good.
I'll
Good.
pretend I am so that I won't make anybody else uncomfortable.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Oh, it's such a shame. It's so sad. We need more spaces where we can just be like, you know what? I am shitty.
Yeah,
Oops, sorry.
that's okay. It's true.
Yeah, we just need more spaces where we could just say that and be
Yeah.
like, no, not okay at all. Not even slightly. And where the other person is going to be like, okay,
Yep.
that's
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I see you. I see you.
Yeah, I
I
think
hear you.
people think we want this like grand gesture, and that's
Mm-mm.
not what it is at all. You don't have to
No.
do something giant or show up at my house every day, or I mean, it's
Yeah.
just a text, a phone call,
Yeah.
hey, I'm thinking of you. Do you need anything? Those
Yeah. Yeah.
those little things mean everything.
Yeah. Or I'm going to the store. Can I get you something while I'm there? Dropping something off on the porch and saying texting and saying, "Hey, I left something on your porch." Here's the other thing. Because it does go away so fast to everyone else, it just disappears, but it doesn't to us, right? It does not to us. So that friend or that family member who has had a miscarriage is still thinking about it. Yes. They're still thinking about it. Yes. And you're not going to remind them if you send them a little text saying, I'm thinking of you. I love you. You're not going to remind them. They don't think about anything else.
Yes.
But what you will do is make them feel less alone. So I
Yeah.
often will send a text and say, you don't need to reply. Relieve them of even that because sometimes there's no energy to even reply. But say, I love you. I'm thinking about you. And that can mean a lot. It meant a lot to me. Those few and far in between texts that I got during my grief meant a lot. So, yeah, no grand gestures, like you
Yeah.
said. Don't need it. Won't help.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if there was somebody who's, I mean, newly going through grief, or even
Mm.
somebody who's years into grieving, what advice would you give them?
Hmm. Well, I probably wouldn't give advice because, like we've been talking, it's grief is individual. So what worked for me might not work for you. What helped me might not help you. So I would just tell them it's okay. You are not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not behind. You might not feel like you're ever going to be okay. And the only thing that I can tell you is that you will not always feel like this. In this moment, right now, crumbling under the pressure of the grief, I promise you, you will not always feel this way. That is 100% certain. I can't tell you how long. I can't tell you how hard it's going to be before you get to a new place of a new kind of okay, because it's never going to be the same kind of okay as it was in the before time, right?
Mhm.
Ever. But you won't always feel this way. That's my underlying message to people.
And yeah, I think that's such an important message because we think we're going to be stuck like this forever. And how can we ever move forward? How can we ever,
Yeah.
be, I mean, as you said, normal
Hmm.
again, but it's
Right.
just, yeah.
Yeah. Well, our brains do this thing called the end of history illusion. And so we can look back on our past and see how much we've changed, how much our circumstances have changed, how much our thinking has changed, how much we have changed. But when in the right now, we cannot see forward into the future when we're experiencing really big emotions. We cannot imagine ever feeling any way other than this. And that's just something our brain does. And so that's why I remind you won't always feel this way. I promise you won't always feel this way. I know it seems like it. You won't. You won't. Yeah, that's just what the brain does when you're in grief.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
interesting to learn about how many of these things are just automatic things that
Mm,
happen that we think it's us doing it, and it's just
yeah,
something that your brain is doing.
absolutely. Yeah, that's what your brain does. Another thing is that we go back and we do the what ifs, right? What if, I should have, if only. That's also an automatic brain response because our brains are like the most amazing computer in the universe. They really are. The human brain is like this amazing computer. And so it's going to keep rerunning the program, trying to find out where was the glitch? What happened that made this program go off the rails? How can we correct it? So your brain is going to do the if onlys, what ifs, I should have's. That's just the computer running the way the computer runs. It's normal. Again, it's normal. And you can say those things out loud. Sometimes it can help. I do think talking about all of it helps, but it's finding a space where you can talk about it. Yeah.
So if people were interested in working with you or finding out more information, where would they go for that?
Well, you can go to my website, which is agriefsupport.com. I do one-on-ones, I do groups, but I really want to kind of tell your listeners about another resource, which is not mine. It's David Kessler. He is from grief.com. He's probably the foremost grief expert in the world. He's my mentor and teacher. And he has an online program called Tender Hearts. And that is just for people who are experiencing grief. And there's a breakout room on Mondays, an individual breakout room for stillbirth and baby death, and it's it's just such an amazing resource. And occasionally I moderate in there. And I think this is such a good space, and I wish more people knew about it. So I'm kind of plugging that because I really want people to get to find the space that feels safe to them, to find the place where they find their grief tribe, to to get where they aren't feeling like an alien, kind of standing in a bubble watching the normal humans. I really, this is yeah, so that's a really good place. And you can find it if you go to grief.com. Just grief.com. Simple. So,
I had no idea that even existed. I recognize his name,
yeah.
but I had no idea. So that's a really great resource to know about.
Yeah, it's just, and that's where I found my first steps towards healing when I was in early grief. I joined Tender Hearts as a member, and it changed everything for me because I started to realize all of the things that we've been talking about today. I'm normal. This is what grief feels like. Grief needs to be witnessed. And I found my grief tribe, the people who I could just take that pretend okay shield off and be like, no, today sucks. And they'd be like, yeah, I feel it. Today
Yeah.
sucks.
It's so
Yeah.
validating.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. But that's also where I saw the people on the shore too, right? I was like, oh, okay, you're this far in and look at you. You're smiling, you're laughing. Yeah, okay, okay. Maybe I can keep going. So yeah, but there's a room there for people who experience infertility and baby loss and miscarriage. So I hope that I hope that helps if anybody's looking for another resource. But you have a pretty great resource yourself.
Well, thank you. I try to
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. I follow you and think, yeah, this is right. Yeah, this is right. So I think you're doing your part in the being the teacher.
That means a lot to me. It truly
Yeah.
does. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
So
thank you so much for coming on today and for everything you're doing to help us all be a little bit less grief illiterate.
yeah. Well, thank you. And right back at you. Thanks for being grief literate yourself and speaking out.
Thank you so much, Kym, for sharing your story with us. If there's only one thing that you take away from today's conversation, I want it to be this. Your grief is not a problem that needs to be fixed. You don't have to rush it, minimize it, or compare it to anybody else's grief. Whether your loss happened recently or years ago, whether the world acknowledged it or you went through it alone, your grief matters, your loss matters, and your story matters. And if this episode meant something to you, please consider sharing it with someone who might need it, or leave a quick review for the podcast on Apple or Spotify. It's very easy to do and really helps the show reach more families who are grieving. Thank you so much for tuning in, and remember, we are all in this together.